Hi, this is Dawn of Stamp Till Dawn, and today I'm going to show how to assemble this Cricut Design Space butterfly pop-up card. It is super fun, but there's a couple little tricky parts of it, and I've made some adaptations, so I thought I'd go ahead and show that to you. So first I cut out all my pieces. You have the leaf, the stamen, you have 3 pieces of flowers, and I have pre-glued some of mine where it's repetitive steps so that you don't have to watch that. So there's 3 pieces of flower. You have 4 pieces of butterfly, so 2 for one side and 2 for the other side, and I've already glued those. You have the insert card that you do with the pen. You have the middle of the butterfly, the body of the butterfly, the inserts for the inside of the card, and then the card base. So let me go ahead and get started with some of these pieces and get you going. So I've already done 2 parts of the flower, but on the flower they're scored. One of them has scores in the middle of the petals as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just fold along the score lines of these flowers, of this petal. Another thing I did on mine was to make the cardstock have a little bit more depth. I did some sponging along the edge of my flower. So let's just do that real quick. I'll move these pieces. I'm using papaya paper from Close to My Heart and the paprika stamp pad. And I've got a little piece of sponge. I cut a regular sponge into quarter sheets. And then here's just some scratch paper I'm bringing in so I don't get ink on my work surface. So I dab the sponge on the stamp pad and then just kind of start when you're off the paper and then go on to the paper and just get a little bit on the edges. If you want to make it more dramatic, you can even pick it up and kind of flick the edges there, and that's going to give you a darker, more dramatic look on the edges of the petals. So I'm just trying to do this real fast here. Okay, let me get the stamp pad out of the way. These you're not going to use right now, you just need to bend them back, and then this piece right here is where you're going to glue it to the other side. So I'll just take a little bit of my Tombow adhesive. Oops. Got a little more than I intended. And then put that together and glue it. And we'll just set this aside. I'll hold it for a minute to kind of press it, and then we'll set it aside so it can dry. Now the butterfly, I mentioned that there's 4 pieces, so I did this side already. The way you tell which pieces go together is by looking at the little notches. The notches need to line up so these 2 pieces go together, and then this body piece goes in between it, like that. So what I'm going to do is start with the back piece here, and I'm going to put some Tombow adhesive onto these solid areas. And you don't want to be too generous because it'll ooze out, but that's why I started with the back. And now I'm going to put this is ruby, by the way, ruby paper. Put that on top of there and press it down. And then I'll do the other side. And now place this on top, line up the pieces so that the slits are all lined up, and I'll just set that aside. The stamen, this is the center of the flower. It also has a little flap on it, and so I'm going to go ahead and glue that. I think it goes the other way. Can't decide. I already put adhesive on my little tabs, and so because of that I have to do it a certain way. The cool thing about the Close to My Heart paper, it is two-toned, and so this is a lighter side and then this is darker, and then when I flick back these stamens, they'll be a little bit darker. I should have waited longer. Let me hold that a little bit longer. Okay, so while those pieces, oh, and then we have the body of the butterfly. All you need to do on this is just fold it along the score line that was made by the machine. So there we go. And now we'll work on the other pieces while those are drying. So this is the card base, and one thing I did, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, I took a glitter pen. I used my green apple shimmer brush, and I put that on the butterfly. It just adds a little to it. Now the card would normally be like this, but of course I have to adapt things, and I didn't really like that it was just so plain on the front. So I used my Cricut to cut a little panel that would go on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that panel. And also on this card, it has a double score in here. So it's a little tricky when you first fold it. If you put your fingers in here and get the first fold, then flip it over and put your fingers on the other side, you can get those two folds. And it did it so that there would be like a gusset because the card's really fat. So it needs a little extra room there. So let me go ahead and adhere. I couldn't decide whether to do the polka dot or the stripes. I ended up going with the stripes. But I love that our paper has two sides, so you can choose which side of the pattern that you prefer. Just center this on here. The other adaptation I made was when your pattern's showing through the back, so that's my inside panel, even the other side of the paper was a little busy. I couldn't really see the butterfly. So I had this sitting around. I had used a stencil on the shortbread paper, and I popped it behind there, and I just really like how that looked. So I'm going to go ahead and put this panel behind the butterfly here. And now that I have that on there, I can now start putting the lining pieces on the inside. So here is my liner that goes on the inside. If you didn't watch my other video where I showed how to adjust the design space file, you might want to do that. At the time that I made my card, not all the pieces were cutting. Like, they were all there, but it didn't send them all to the mat. And this was one of the pieces that didn't initially cut. So I recorded a video showing how to work with that design space file and fix that up. It's always nice when you're using like a tape runner to make sure you get a nice adhesion. So I will often use my bone folder or my Cricut scraper to kind of really push down on the edges. Now this piece has score marks. You do not need to fold it and make a pocket really, but it is helpful if you fold it a little bit on those score marks. It helps the paper to pop up a little bit because you're going to have a little insert card that goes in there. So I just kind of gently fold it along those score lines. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my adhesive on here. At this time I'm going to use the liquid adhesive. It's a little narrow. I'm not quite sure if my tape runner will fit on there, so using the Tombow helps with that. Again, don't use too much because it could squeeze out past where you want it to be. So now I'm going to place this on here, line it up with the other panel. And again, a nice press is helpful. Okay, so there we go, and then this panel goes right in here. I think on my final version I'll probably add a piece of ribbon on here to make it easier to pull this in and out. So there is your card base, and now we'll go back to the pieces that go inside of it. So here's the green, and this is the back side of New England Ivy. So you can see the front side here, and then this is the lighter side. This piece is an older one, so both sides are dark, but all of our paper is two-toned, and so it makes it kind of nice. So I felt like this one popped off on there really nicely, so I'm going to use the light side. And then now you're going to look at your flower pieces, and you're going to take the largest flower piece, and you're going to go to the outermost little slot that's on this leaf. And I'm going to stick the little tab right through that slot. Now the first time I made it, I tried working with like liquid glue and I was making a mess. So this time I put some tape on there ahead of time. So I'm just removing the protective cover part of it. And it's double-sided tape. And this is a lot less messy and easier to work with because you're not waiting for anything to dry. So I got my first flower on there, super quick and easy. Let me take my second one and I'm gonna go into the next slot that's in here. So I'll slip that into the second slot, and same thing on that side, and again remove my cover on my tape and press it down. See, once you get all the prep, this really, and I really like the design actually of how this card was put together, but once you have the prep done, it goes pretty fast. So I'm gonna stick the next one in to the next slot. Switching to the tape, you can use red line tape. I'm using up some I had gotten at a convention a long time ago. So red line tape would work really well for this as well. It's easier than a tape runner trying to get it onto the pieces. Okay, so there we go. We got our flower in there. And next up is gonna be our stamen. Now, the stamen's a little bit different. I did do it backwards. So I'm gonna have to put another piece of tape on here. Let's try to do tape runner real quick, because this one folds. What do you think goes in? Yeah, it folds the opposite way. You'll see in just a second. There we go. See how hard it's harder to get in here with a tape runner. Okay, so this is going into the next little slot here. And instead of going away, too funny, I had it right the whole time. You gotta learn to trust myself. No, I didn't. Okay, so this goes in instead of going away. So that's why I had my tape on the wrong part. So I'm pointing it in, and what that does is give us the gap over here where we're gonna put the butterfly. So we're just ignoring that had tape there. There's my stamen in there, and you can kind of press it out. And now it's our butterfly. So the butterfly has little scores on here, and it's actually 2 pieces of paper. So kind of make sure it's folded so they'll be easier. And then there's 2 slots, one closest to the body of the butterfly and one farther away. You're gonna take the second slot and put these 2 together. And then now, and you can add your butterfly at this point. It kind of felt like it was hard to do that, so I'm going to put my butterfly in first. So this is going to go between the stamen and the flower because we folded this paper the other way. So this is the hardest part, I feel like, and I'm hoping I can do this on camera because I struggled with this a little bit on mine, on my first version, and I feel it coming through. So okay, and then now they're coming apart a little bit, but that's okay. We can put it back in there. And then stick this one in the other side. There we go. We got our parts through. And at this point, because there's 2 pieces, I'm going to make one flap go one way and the other flap go the other way. So there's 2 here. Put a little glue in there. I could have put the tape on there as well. Ooh, a lot of glue. But I didn't. So tape would have been easier for me at this point, so I'll just hold it. And then let's do the other side. Not super concerned about this being all the way down right now, because I'm going to tape it into the card here in a minute, but I can pretend it's taped into the card and kind of push this down for a second to see if I can get it to stick better. Okay, my butterfly's kind of trying to come apart in here. Let's get them back together. There we go. Now I can take the piece, and so I think I actually went this way. Ooh, that kind of looks cool where his body's a different. I love this, the other side of the paper. I'm going to do that because then it kind of makes his body, see if I did it this way versus this way. I'm going to be a rebel here and just slide him on there. There you go. Just test it, make sure everything folds in together really well, and it does. So now we can glue this whole piece into our card. Look how gorgeous that is. So with this, I will use the Tombow liquid adhesive, and it doesn't have to be permanently attached everywhere. A liquid adhesive is really good for this type of work because you want a nice strong hold, and you know, sometimes tape runner, if it gets warm or in a warm part of the country or something, it can pop off with time, whereas liquid adhesive tends to be a little bit more permanent. So I'm kind of lining up the center with the crease in the card, and I'm just going to fold my card. Okay, now let's go to the other side, put our adhesive on this side. And fold our card. And there you have the pop-up. I just love this card. Okay, so here's a quick little update on the initial card. I added a little saying and put some ribbon on the little insert card right there so you can pull it out with that. And then on the card I did on the video, I did the same thing. I added the saying and some ribbon here, but you'll notice my butterflies kind of spread out. I realized I forgot to put these two pieces inside. So I just unhooked my butterfly from itself, and then I'm gonna stick these in here. Would have been much easier to do this when I was assembling the card, but we're gonna fix it real quick. It doesn't have anything to do with the mechanical part of it. I just mostly wanted to make sure you knew it was there. And then you can kind of see a little bit of the green behind the butterfly if you don't do this. I think it would have been fine, but I would have felt bad if you had those pieces and you didn't know what they were for. So put them together. Now I'll put my butterfly, again, hooking it on the second. This is the tricky part because it's in there. On the second piece right there, and then I have my butterfly body to put in the first slot. So just slide it in there. See, we can always fix things, right? There we go. I also finished putting my shimmer brush on the butterfly, so it has a nice little shimmer. So there we go, all done.